So I want to once again thank Reverend Smitty for inviting me to speak with you today for your Gotan-E, the celebration of our founder Shinran Shonin's birthday. Reverend Smitty and I went through Tokudo together in Kyoto. That Tokudo experience gave me an even greater admiration and respect for Smitty Sensei for persevering and going beyond the physical and mental challenges that the experience put us all through. And I'm proud to call her my friend. You might recall that when we received Tokudo ordination, we had our heads shaved. And both Reverend Smitty and I came back with bald heads. And I think she invited me to speak today as she very kindly said that I looked like Shinran and maybe I could pull it off if I wanted to keep my head shaved. I had to break it to her that I told her, I'm sorry, but she didn't really look anything like Shinran. But as you can see, I've grown my hair back a little bit more and maybe a little bit more like Reverend Akahoshi. So which brings me to another connection I have with the San Diego Temple. I am a retired dentist, and for years, whenever the subject of my being a dentist came up at a BCA gathering, I was always asked, do you know Reverend Akahoshi? He's such a nice guy, and he used to be a dentist. So I feel like I knew a lot about Reverend Akahoshi before I even met him. Well, you'd be happy to know I finally got to meet Reverend Akahoshi at the Jodo Shinshu Center back when I was at IBS. And if you were wondering, yes, we were able to do our secret dentist handshake with each other. So before I begin, I want to just take a moment to tell you about our Twin Cities Sangha, where I'm from, and why there is a Jodo Shinshu community in Minneapolis. So our Sangha has been in existence since 1946. And it was started as a result of a large number of Nisei soldiers who were stationed at Fort Snelling and Camp Savage here in Minnesota during World War II. And these were US military bases training Japanese American soldiers and translating for the war effort. It originally started at the Presidio in San Francisco, but moved inland for supposed safety reasons. And ironically, this was happening while their families were being imprisoned in concentration camps. Often referred to as internment camps. And once released, many of the families of these soldiers decided to move to Minnesota, like my parents. So with the concentration of Japanese Americans here in the Twin Cities, there was a desire to start a Sangha. And with the help of Reverend Kono of the Midwest Buddhist Temple of Chicago, our group started 76 years ago. And I suspect many of you listening today may have had relatives who may have been stationed at Fort Snelling at one point in time. And the bottom photo here, well, the top photos are of the Sangha back in the very early days. And the bottom photo is more contemporary picture prior to the pandemic, when Reverend Dagata, you probably recognize him in the picture as well. He was visiting. So after my talk with the Dharma School students, I'm sure some of you are maybe a little bit on edge, thinking, gosh, I better pay attention today because he might speak to me. Well, don't worry, I can't really see you all since I pre-recorded this, but it does hint maybe at the subject of my talk today. So I'd like to begin with a reading from the Jodo Shinshu chapter on Shinjin, where Shinran quotes from the Garland Sutra. So please join me in Gassho. If one constantly entrusts to and reveres the precious Dharma, one never tires of listening to the Buddha's teaching. If one never tires of listening to the Buddha's teaching, one entrusts to the inconceivable working of the Dharma. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu. Now, as we are commemorating Shinran's birth on Gotan-E, it is often customary to reflect on Shinran's life. So I'd like to speak about a particular moment in time in Shinran's life when he was to be ordained. And there's a very famous story of when Shinran became a monk at age 9. He was taken to a temple to be ordained. And this was a difficult time of unrest in history when life was not to be taken for granted. But due to the lateness of the hour, his ordination was postponed until the next day. So Shinran then composed the poem. For those who count on tomorrow, like the fragile cherry blossom, tonight unexpected winds may blow. So he understood, even at that young age, of the uncertainty of the world and that tomorrow is not guaranteed. It's a reminder of the fleeting nature of our existence and emphasizes the urgency of listening to the Dharma and how we should approach our life. I don't know about you, but at that age, at age 9, I don't even think I could make a complete sentence. So earlier I shared my reflections on birthday gifts with the Dharma school students. And I'd like to tell you a little more about Shinran's emphasis on the urgency of listening to the Dharma, but at the same time, a little bit more about my state of Minnesota through a gift I received from my wife on my birthday. So this gift was a print done by a very good friend of ours who is an artist. It is called the Witch Tree, or the Little Cedar Spirit Tree. Now, the artist her name is Hazel, and she's a very good friend of ours. She is a nationally and internationally acclaimed artist, acclaimed as an artist and teacher. And she's in her late 80s now, and for well over 50 years of her career, she's focused a large part of her art on a single tree that's located on the shores of Lake Superior on the Grand Portage Indian Reservation in northern Minnesota. And it is estimated that the tree has been there for over 400 years. The North Shore of Lake Superior in Minnesota is one of the most beautiful places in our state. Minnesota also has a very strong Native American culture, and the tree is located on a Native reservation. She's photographed, painted, and drawn many views of this tree during this time, and she's received considerable acclaim, but also a considerable amount of criticism for what can be interpreted as a limited subject matter in her career. So this is a special tree known by the Native people as the Little Cedar Spirit Tree, also known as the Witch Tree. And the tree is believed to have healing powers, is considered sacred by Native and non-Native people. The tree is on the shores of Lake Superior, which is the largest of the Great Lakes, and the lake was formed by the melting glaciers, so the shores are very rocky. The tree seems to defy nature, growing out of rock, and is precariously perched over the harsh climate of Lake Superior. Native American spirituality speaks about rock, wind, water, and fire as being the basic substances of life. And a poet once said about this tree that these traits are embodied in the tree and its setting. So Hazel says the witch tree is a symbol and living reality of the place, the spirit there, the people, and the creative force of art that springs from the cedar. She says, as an artist, when your magic appears to you, you'll recognize it. And the tree is that magic, the key to my artistic metaphor. More than the spirit tree itself, the metaphor is the journey of life. So to her and the Native community, the tree gives form to the formless, the infinite that is inconceivable. So when I hear her say this, I tend to contextualize it in my own way of understanding and think of it as hearing the call of Amida. If you allow yourself to hear it, to be grasped by the truth, you will recognize it. It is not static, it is dynamic, like the tree itself. Not only has the tree withstood the harsh climate of the rocky cliff, but like Shinran's teaching, also transcends time and space, and not only perseveres, but thrives in whatever climate and location it lives. So I think it would be easy to overlook the dynamic nature of the tree and see it as the same tree there for 400 years. And I think the artists, the critics probably are thinking that way. But each time she sees the tree, she sees it uniquely. The tree is a dynamic, living, breathing thing that is never the same. Each time she sees the tree, she is also different, and the environment is different, whether it's the day's climate or the level of sunshine. The tree not only has form to marvel, but a spiritual presence that is difficult to comprehend. It is form giving rise to formlessness. Now, as we understand interdependence as the idea that nothing comes about from itself, the tree cannot exist without the support of so many other things. What the tree breathes out, we humans take in order to survive, and vice versa. Because of that symbiotic relationship, the tree is really part of us. There's a dynamic oneness. Hazel has the ability to look at this tree visually, functionally, and spiritually as if she sees it for the first time, every time, and it shows in her art. Now, in his book, The Buddha's Wish for the World, the former Monshu, the 24th descendant of Shinran Shonin, he talked about how to listen with the heart. Now, Smitty Sensei referred to this in her New Year's Eve talk last year, and it listed 3 points that relate to our everyday lives. And these days, with our bombardment of social media and easy access to our phones to play Clash of Clans, I know I'm challenged with my listening skills. So this reminds us how deep listening is important in our life as a Jodo Shinshu follower. So first, you should listen as if you're listening for the very first time. And as adults, we typically call upon our preconceived notions and knowledge and don't really look beyond the surface into discovery any longer. If you listen with this thought in mind, no matter how many times we hear or see something, you will always hear or see something new. Secondly, is you should listen as if the message is for you alone. And this talks about making the message meaningful for you. When the minister gives a message about the difficulties of our human condition, when they speak about awkwardly choosing to cheer for the Broncos rather than the Chargers, it's easy to think, this doesn't apply to me. It's really about Jeff. Okay, I may be putting words into Kimberly's mouth, but I hope he's listening. Anyway, he's really talking about me, to you, and really to all of us. Self-reflection is important to making it meaningful for you. And Shinran looked at how the teachings applied to him. It was very personal for him. And third, you should listen as if this is the last time you'll ever do so in your life. We don't know what will happen tomorrow, so we must make the most of today. The opening poem I read by the 9-year-old Shinran stated it best. Well, these 3 points offer wonderful guidance on how to listen to the Dharma and really how to experience the world. Now, Shinran Shonin, the 8th abbot or 8th spiritual leader of our tradition, is quoted in the Goichi Daiki Kikigaki, hearing one teaching repeatedly. After you have gained Shinjin, even when you hear the same teaching again, you should feel as if it was for the first time. People only wish to hear something new. However many times you may hear the same teaching, you ought to think that this is the rare, marvelous teaching you have never heard before. Now, what Renyo is reminding us is that the opportunity to hear the Dharma is a rare opportunity. And that is important to practice deep and sincere listening. That is what my friend Hazel is also saying with her art each time she encounters the spirit tree. So also in the former Monshu's book, he said, when we are filled with our own worries, the voices of others can barely enter our ears. And this is because we are too preoccupied to listen. At such times, stop right there, close your eyes, and open the ears of your heart. When you can sharpen the ears of the heart, things you ordinarily would not hear can be heard. You can now pay attention to the person who has something to ask of you. The voice of the Buddha is the same as this. So I put the painting on a wall where I often sit to think. And each time I look at my new painting, not only do I enjoy its artistic beauty, but it allows me to reflect on the important point that our karmic condition is bringing us to the Dharma. And this will be different each time. And when I understand this, the dynamic nature of her art comes alive. Now, if we approach each encounter and each opportunity to hear the Dharma with a sense of urgency by listening with the ears of the heart, we'll find each day and each encounter more meaningful and with a deeper sense of gratitude. And this is not just a Sunday event at the temple. It is in our daily life interactions. Jodo Shinshu is a lived tradition. And this is Namo Amida Butsu. Deep listening, observing consciously, connecting us in space and time to the world around us and the truth of reality. Now, as we reflect on the life of Shinran and all that we have received as a result of his life, we can see this tree is also telling us about its strength and meaning in its existence, only if we take the time to listen. So please join me in Gasho as I once again read a passage from the Kyogyo Shinshu, the chapter on Shinjin, where Shinran quotes from the Garland Sutra. If one constantly entrusts to and reveres the precious Dharma, one never tires of listening to the Buddha's teaching. If one never tires of listening to the Buddha's teaching, one entrusts to the inconceivable working of the Dharma. Namo Amida Butsu, Naman Butsu, Naman Butsu, Naman Butsu, Naman Butsu. And thank you again for listening today and for allowing me to be with you for Gotan-E. And once again, thank you again to the Cruz family for being good sports.